crystal ball, college football. I'm your host, Grayson Grunhafer. Let's dive in to the matchup of the week. Number 1, Georgia versus number 2, Tennessee. Of course, we're going to talk about this matchup. We absolutely have to. Both these teams, very, very good. I think we're finding out more every single week about Tennessee, and we're kind of just sitting there and going, okay, I think we know what Georgia is, right? Because if you look at their schedule, they played Oregon early, smashed them. So we have an idea of what they can be. But throughout the year, they just haven't really been challenged, like Auburn, Vanderbilt, Florida, Missouri, Kent State, like a lot of games against teams that aren't frankly very good. Whereas on the other hand, you got Tennessee, who's got 5 wins against top 25 teams. That's fantastic. I think I heard on, I think it might have been Josh Pate, was talking about the fact that the ACC as a whole has 4 top 25 wins, and Tennessee has 5 as a team. That's pretty crazy, and that's where we're at with Tennessee football right now. The Vols just blasted Kentucky 44-6 in what was considered a trap game, and it was absolutely not a trap game at all. Tennessee was awesome in this one, and I think we found out, Kentucky's a little fraudulent. Will Levis is not the guy that I think many people thought he would be coming into the year. I didn't have high expectations for Kentucky, and they're kind of meeting those little expectations that I had for them. And Tennessee showed up. And frankly, right before you play Georgia, to play a team that was considered a top 20 team and to blow them out like that, that's impressive regardless of who you're playing. They finally got Cedric Tillman back, their all-SEC receiver from a year ago, and he didn't do much in this game. And I think it might take him time to get to full strength. But just having him out there, I think, opened up things even more for 2 guys that I've mentioned a lot this year, Brew McCoy and Jalen Hyatt. We've talked about them quite a bit on this show right here. And mainly it was about how with Cedric Tillman out, these 2 guys had to step up and become even better players than I think we thought they were going to be coming into the year. And I think that growth is really going to pay massive dividends as the season kind of goes on. I know Jalen Hyatt is probably the landside favorite to be the Blitnikoff Award winner. He has been just crazy, absolutely crazy good. And Brew McCoy's been solid as well. So if they get Tillman back to the point where he is that all-SEC caliber guy, my goodness, you're talking about 3 just absolute dominant number 1 wide receivers, honestly, on this football team. So that was fun to see. The defense got 4 more sacks, 8 more tackles for loss. They forced 3 turnovers. They now have the 11th best turnover margin in the country. That's really all you got to say about them. They're continuing to play really good football. They're continuing to grow and develop. And what we saw from them in this game was kind of that step towards being a great team in my eyes, right? Because they had that really close win over Alabama. They had that dominant win over LSU and then a close win over Florida. And the more dominant wins you rack up, the more brownie points at least I give you, because I just think that's ultimately what makes a great team, is the teams that go in and blow out teams that are good, and then you also beat the elite teams on your schedule. So we're going to find out how elite they are against Georgia this week. Georgia, they beat Florida 42-20. I felt like this was more of just like a take care of business game. I wouldn't say that Georgia was just, utterly dominant, or that I came away with, many other takes outside of, hey, Georgia's really good again. They ran for 239 yards, 6 yards per carry. Stetson Bennett was good outside of the turnovers. The defense played really well. I just think they're humming. Right. And Florida's not a great team. Florida's 1-4 in the conference, 4-4 overall. So this is more Georgia playing a rival, taking care of business by 3 touchdowns. Another day at the office. Now, they did lose Nolan Smith, their star linebacker for the year. So we'll see kind of how that impacts them going into this Tennessee game. So let's dive in a little bit into some of the numbers that I think are going to be really important in this one. One thing I learned about both these teams kind of doing the studying of their statistics is how good they are on 3rd down. Both are converting on 3rd down at a top 12 rate, both over 50% converting on 3rd down. What happens there is Georgia's giving themselves great opportunities at 3rd and shorts. Tennessee, on the other hand, has an elite quarterback, and when you have an elite quarterback, it makes 3rd downs much easier. And the fact that Tennessee's running the ball far, far better than they did a year ago. On the flip side, on the defensive side, right? Because we're like, oh, okay, so both these offenses are going to convert third downs really easily in this game, right? Not so fast. Georgia is 10th at eliminating third downs as a defensive unit, and Tennessee's 18th. Both are right around 30% in what they're allowing on third down. So, I mean, it's kind of going to come to a head, right? Which team is going to convert the third downs at a higher rate, and which trend is kind of fraudulent, and which trend is actually something worth paying attention to. I would also say, another stat that I kind of looked at this week, because overall, my mindset going into this game is that Tennessee's probably not going to be able to run the football against Georgia. So how are they going to look throwing the ball, right? And Georgia, the number 3 passing efficiency defense in the nation, versus Tennessee, the number 1 passing efficiency offense in the nation. So again, it's another one of those stats where you go, okay, something has to break here. Is Georgia just not been tested, and that's kind of where we're at? Has Tennessee not faced a defense quite like Georgia's? I think both statements can be very true going into this game. So I think in general, the more that I dove into this game, the more that I've looked at, I've come to this conclusion that I think this game's going to come down to Stetson Bennett. And I think a lot of games for Georgia against the elite teams are going to come down to how Stetson Bennett plays, because I'm of the belief that Tennessee's probably going to score 27 to 33 points would be my guess. I don't think Georgia's going to be able to keep them from scoring. They have too many weapons. They're going to be able to move the ball. But on the flip side, I don't think Tennessee's going to be able to stop Georgia a ton if Stetson Bennett plays well. And Stetson Bennett has played pretty well this year. And he's facing a Tennessee defense that is 127th against the pass. So there's going to be opportunities, especially because I do think Tennessee's going to focus on taking away the run game for Georgia, which is going to allow opportunities for Stetson Bennett to make plays. I'll also say this. I think as far as home field advantage goes, Georgia hasn't had a lot of these massive games where they get to play, a headliner matchup at home, because Tennessee's been down, Florida's been up and down. They just haven't really had all these marquee matchups. And Florida, you played them in Jacksonville, so you already don't get an opportunity there. So you're banking on South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Tennessee, teams in the SEC East that haven't been very good. So I really think this Georgia crowd is about to let loose in this game. I think it's going to be a crazy environment. I know Tennessee's played in some crazy environments, but most of those have come at home outside the LSU game. So I think they go on the road to a very testy environment, and I think they're going to get challenged in a big way trying to overcome that crowd. So going into this, at least right now, Georgia's an 8.5-point favorite. The over-under is 66 points. My feel for this game is I think it's going to be something like 38-30 or 38-31. And I do have it in favor of Georgia. And I've been high on Tennessee all year, but I do think things come to an end a little bit here. I think Georgia is just another level, especially defensively. I think they might actually be able to force Hendon Hooker into some mistakes, force some turnovers, eliminate the run game a little bit, which will hurt Tennessee until Tennessee adjusts, because I do think their offense is good enough to score on anyone, which is why 31 points on Georgia, that's a pretty big deal. But I think Georgia's going to win this game by a touchdown. So I actually have Tennessee to cover that 8.5-point spread. But I think Georgia gets the win and kind of makes a statement on kind of who they are going forward in this season. And just to be clear here, I think Tennessee and Georgia could make the college football playoff. Now, that would require Tennessee winning out, require Georgia winning out. But if you're telling me 11-1 Tennessee with the schedule they've played, and then a 13-0 Georgia, they would obviously be in. But I think Tennessee at 11-1, they'd get in over pretty much any one-loss Power 5 conference champion in my eyes. So that's kind of where things are at. Thanks for listening today. I'll have more recaps, breakdowns throughout the week, and of course, my best bets on Friday. But thanks for listening to Crystal Ball College Football.